In today's video, we are headed into the Yield Goat and we are going to do a huge booth flip. I've been vacationing in Mexico and the booth is looking not so good, folks. So let's go ahead and start this booth flip. The first thing I had to do for my booth restock is basically restock all my DIY paint. While I was in Mexico, I actually had to place 2 separate orders for the paint. I could not believe the amount of sales in my booth and online that I was getting. I got those 2 orders, and the first thing I do is I like to put a label on all my paints. Well, I went into my labels and they were gone. So I had gone through 3,000 labels, and what a milestone, folks. I sold 3,000 pieces of paint already, or I've labeled that many, I should say. I still have stock in both my booths. At both of my locations, I always carry 2 32-ounce, 2 16, and 3 of the 8-ounce. And I just find that that is a good amount of paint for each color, and I like to really maintain that in each of my booths. The next thing I wanted to do was hang this window, and here is the spot that I have totally envisioned for this window since I decided I was going to create it. Now, to get the window over to the Yield Goat, I did hoist it on top of my little Honda Pilot. I opened up both of the back windows and I ratchet strapped it to the top. I did have a few odd looks, and I also had one older lady pull over next to me and honk at me, which I found completely funny. But what I did is I first painted this 2x4, and I did put a 2x4 up on top just for added strength. A 2x4 has big enough girth to it that it would hold the weight of this window. So I painted it white to match my entire pergola, and I screwed it in with just 3 screws on each side. Next, I took 8 eye bolts and I used 4 in the window, 4 in the 2x4, and I drilled a starter hole for all the eye bolts. I just screwed them all in, and then I took S-hooks and I hung an S-hook from each of the eye bolts from the 2x4, and then I had some leftover chain from a different project, and it worked out perfect. I was able to have 5 chains hanging off of each of those eye bolts, and then I took another S-hook, put it in the eye bolt that was on the window, and then attached it to the chain. And I absolutely love how this turned out. If you do follow me over on Facebook, I did do this window on a series of lives every Monday and Wednesday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. I do go live, and I found this window at a rummage. Actually, my mom found it for me, called me, and I was able to grab this for $10, and I absolutely love it. I had so many different visions for it, but honestly, this was the perfect spot for it. Now on to the rest of my booth. While I was gone, I sold so many big items out of this booth. It was looking horrible. So what I've done so far is I had the table right next to the clock. I moved the table and the area rug against this window. I then, my plans here, or my vision, I want to take that green cabinet and put it across from that table. I've also moved, I just flipped around a couple items, and I took the yellow chairs that initially had been right here, and I moved that over on the other side. And then that tall hutch type thing was against the wall. I just try to move things around to make the booth look completely different, keeping the same staple pieces. One thing that I also want to do is paint 6 chairs and put them with that table. My main goal, though, is to get this booth put together for the vintage shop hop. That rolling card I want to put on the outside a bit right where that green, if you look straight ahead, there's a green dresser. So I'm going to roll it and face that outwards. I'm also going to take that other to the right, that other tall green hutch, and I'm putting it in that open space on that wall. So anytime you're doing a mega booth flip, what I like to do is start on one side and work my way, because there are still shoppers in the store. I don't want to completely demolish my booth. I mean, it looked horrible, but at least they can still shop from the outsides. So I always try to start on one side and move things strategically within the booth. Because I have to move next that big green hutch, I'm like, oh great, I just set all this stuff here and now I have to move all of that in order to slide that in place. Now the hutch still has all glassware in it, and I didn't want to completely empty it, so I shut the doors and I started to slide. I did take the items off the top. I figured that that would be pretty protected if I made sure that even if something were to tip inside, I did not think it was going to break. So after I slid it into place, it really, I think, opened up my space. Initially, when I did my display for the holidays, I thought the two green pieces at the end would be perfect. I think it kind of closed off the booth a bit, and by moving that against the wall, it really opened it up. Now, one thing too is I do have people stop in and chatting while I am moving items. And he was kind enough to then help me move this dresser because I could not get it going, but I got it over in place, and see how it opened up the flow of the entire booth there. Now here I pulled that rolling cart right over in front. And now here's another angle, and I just started pricing items that I brought, and I'm just starting to place them about. I also, if you notice under the table on one of my previous videos, I flipped 2 end tables, and I wanted to include them in the booth so they fit perfectly underneath that table. I then want to take, when I talked about the 6 chairs that I plan on refabbing for the table, I'm going to put 2 on each end, 2 behind, and then 2 on top. And I think it will really tie that all together. So in the video, like, I just keep placing things here and there, and amazingly, it all comes together. It basically took me an entire day to do this booth flip, and I think it really turned out beautiful. I love how that window is just like a statement piece in here. Initially, I had not planned on selling it, but my husband said, "You always say you need to put a price tag on everything." And honestly, he is completely correct. So I priced it, and if anybody wants it for that price that I put on it, it's theirs. So here's a peek of the finished booth. I mean, is it ever really finished, guys? I still have to finish painting the 6 chairs and recovering them. That is a weekend project. I had big hopes of having those in the booth prior to the shop hop. Unfortunately, that did not happen. I also have a bunch of greenery that I need to price and get in the booth as well. So I am going to let you just watch the rest of the video with the total finished booth at this point. I hope you enjoyed today's video and a little glimpse of a day in the life of what goes into doing a complete booth flip when you come back from Mexico and things are definitely out of place. So I did have to scramble a bit, and there were projects that I definitely wanted to complete, so like the window, and that took the entire day. Again, I will be back Monday probably with another thrift to treasure. I definitely want to keep working on those. You have a great weekend and we'll see you then.